Good morning, everyone, and once again, I welcome you all to KLF Bhava Samvad. Today's is a poetry reading session entitled Women Poets and Words That Inspire. It's a pleasure to announce that we have Smitha Agrawal, Rachna Joshi, Deepa Agrawal, and Jayashree Mishra Tripathi with us on the panel today. Smitha Agrawal is a well known cultural person and Indian poet writing in English. Her poems have received awards and residencies and have been curated in magazines, journals, and anthologies published from India and abroad. She has also published several critical articles and translations from from English to Hindi. She is a professor of English, University of Allahabad, India, and former director of the for Women's Studies at the same university. She's a trained singer who has sung professionally on All India Radio, Doordarshan, and cultural events like Triveni Mahotsav and Shilp Mela. Currently, she divides her time between the two cities of Allahabad and Mumbai. Deepa Agrawal is an author, poet, and translator. She writes for both children and adults and has over 50 books published. She has received the NCERT National Award for Children's Literature in 1993 for her picture book Ashok's New Friends, while her historical fiction Caravan to Tibet was on the International Board on Books for Young People Honor List 2008. Her work has been translated into several Indian and foreign languages. She has published one poetry collection for adults, Do Not Weep Lonely Mirror. Her latest titles are The Begum, a biography of Rana Liaquat Ali Khan, Pakistan's first lady, The Teenage Diary of Noorjahan, a historical fiction, Blessed, a fantasy on the theme of education for girls, Friendship Stories and Journey to the Forbidden City, a non-fiction on the exploration of Tibet. Rachna Joshi has a master's degree in creative writing from Syracuse University, USA. She has taught English as a second language with the Calgary Catholic School Board, Canada. She has also worked as business manager for the Dandelion Magazine Society, Calgary, Canada. She has published 4 books of poetry, Configurations, Crossing the Veterini, Travel Tapestry, and Monsoon and Other Poems. She works as senior assistant editor at the India International Centre, New Delhi. Her poems have been published in Syracuse Review, Nimrod, Blue Buffalo, New Delhi, London Poetry Quarterly, and Seventh Query. Jayashree Mishra Tripathi lived a nomadic lifestyle from 1986 till 2015 as the wife of a career foreign service officer in the Indian Civil Service. She has written from across 3 continents. Jayashree followed up her MA in English from Delhi University in 1978 with a postgraduate diploma in human rights law from the National Law School of India University, Bangalore. She has taught English language and literature, been an examiner in English for the diploma of the International Baccalaureate Organization, and was their trained consultant. Her recent collection of poetry, Uncertain Times, has just been published by Paperscript Publishers, who had also published Trips and Trails, a selection of songs and poems in December 2018. What Not Words is a short story collection set in India and travel through the diaspora. Earlier works include The Sorrow of Unanswered Questions, published by the International Center for Ethnic Studies, Colombo, Sri Lanka in 2001. Jayashree has also written online, including for the Huffington Post and News 18 blogs. She also has reviews for the Sahitya Academy's journal, Indian Literature. So before we begin with the session, I would like to tell our viewers that we welcome questions from the audience during the session. And in any case, if you miss to watch the session live, you can later find the links on our pages, that is on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter. Now, I would like to hand over the session to Jayashree. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Deva Mitra, and welcome to all our viewers. Thank you for joining us this morning. We have a wonderful panel for you to listen to their poetry. But before we begin, may I please take the privilege of quoting a few words from Pablo Neruda's Keeping Quiet, which is being quoted all over the world in these days of the pandemic. It was written in the 1950s, but translated and published in 1974. posthumously. And you will understand why I'm quoting from this earthquake. And we will all keep still for once on the face of the earth. Let's not speak in any language. Let's stop for a second and not move our arms so much. It would be an exotic moment without rush, without engines. We would all be together in a sudden strangeness. So the past 5 months have been quite strange for most of us. But these moments of stillness, we may have discovered moments of truth about ourselves. There's so many possibilities. And today's session, we're going to hear poetry on women and the environment, hope and wellness, and hope you enjoy this session. May I hand over to Smitha Agrawal? Smitha.
Thank you so much. Before I begin, I would like to thank Jayashree Tripathi, Rashmi Ranjan Parida, and Sitanshu, and of course Devamitra, for having me here. My daughter-in-law is an Odia from Bhubaneswar, so I'm delighted to be part of Kalinga Fest. And I'd like to begin with the 3 Odia words that I have learned till now. Apno Kemati Achanti. Bhallo. After having said that much, and I'm hoping that all the people associated with Kalinglit Fest, sort of like to listen to me now. I'd like to move on to the poems. As Jayashree said, we're going to be reading, we have been doing a lot of thinking and wanting to read poems that deal with the effect of climate change. So the first poem that I'm going to read today is titled Binsar Baramasa. Now, Binsar is a beautiful, beautiful place in the hill state of Uttarakhand in India. And in the months of March and April, hillside upon hillside upon hillside is a blood red covered by the flowering rhododendrons. And the second part of the title of my poem, Baramasa, Baramasa is an ancient cultural form that we have in Indian literature, a form of folk music, folk poetry, sculpture, painting that depicts the 12 seasons, the Bara Mas or the 12 months, the Bara Mas or the 12 months of the year. So therefore, I have titled this poem Binsar Baramasa, and I have prefaced it with a Gadhwali Baramasa that I will sing out to you, just a little snatch, because Jayashree wanted me to sing something for you during the reading. So Binsar Baramasa begins like this. Bedapaka Baramasa, Bedapaka Baramasa, Naranika Palpa Kucheta, Miri Chela, Naranika Palpa Kucheta, Miri Chela. Runi Bhuni Din Gya, Runi Bhuni Din Gya, Narani Puja Mera Mehta, Miri Chela, Narani Puja Mera Mehta, Miri Chela. This jungle is quite literally Kamadev's playground. New shoots and leaves tell me it's spring. The blood red rhododendron has set the wilderness on fire. Big, fat bumblebees, wasps, flies, gnats, Kamadev's emissaries are busy zipping by like aeroplanes. A wild pear tree is in full bloom in white. It leans against a rhododendron, a quiet play of white on red, like the saris Shantiniketan girls wear when sending forth lilting strains of Rabindra Sangeet. Yesterday, at dusk, a bright light the size of a tennis ball moved with great speed over the western tree line, an asteroid, a reminder of the variety and vastness of space. Past, past twilight, in the pitch dark, at 7,500 feet, Orion was playfully touching my nose. The barking deer called out to its mate. The brain fever bird went coo, coo, coo. The petrol car returned with a gang of excited young policemen reporting a leopard sighting on the main road. No electricity, no running water in the taps. You not there for a few days, a back to basics life in this forest rest house in the middle of nowhere, reading Bill Bryson's A Walk in the Woods by Candlelight. Sindhu Gangola of Grand Oak Manor tells me last year the rhododendron bloomed in December. The sad effects of climate change, global warming, screwing up biorhythms. Will there be a day we won't have any seasons? No winter, no snow, no high heat in May, no relentless rain in August, no leaves turning red-brown in October? Just one standard season, heat sucking out the life of grasses and plants, vaporizing glaciers? Poets out of work. Poets out of work having said all on this unvarying season, nostalgic of their juvenilia ditties written when the earth moved and the seasons turned. Thank you. The next poem that I have chosen to bring before you is called Old Houses in the Sun, and it brings forward the social conditions of widows under Brahmanical patriarchy. The condition of these widows is contrasted to the position of the small girls who are listening to the stories of their grandmothers, and for whom the lives of their grandmothers are just mere stories, far away, remote, unreal stories. The poem shows the change for the better that has occurred in middle class Hindu society. There is an image that I want you to concentrate on when you listen to the poem. The image is of the little girls with their frocks bunched up and their underwear showing. This image in the poem reflects this dramatic change, this change for the better that has occurred for women in our Indian society. The little girls, they do not face the restrictions and the constrictions that their grandmothers faced. I have prefaced this poem with a quote from Torulata Dutt, the 19th century poetess writing in English in India. And the quote is from Toru Dutt's poem Savitri. It is about widows, and it says, "And think upon the dreadful curse of widowhood, the vigils, the fasts, and the penances." So here goes. Old houses in the sun. Old houses in the sun are puckering their toothless lips as they grind the daily masalas. The thick-bottomed wok is set on the stove. A generous pour of mustard oil, some spices thrown in, and the stories begin to cook. Buaji from Kothar, widow, childless, wearing unstitched cloth while cooking. Impure woman, pure as Ganga Jal at 6 a.m., preparing bhog for her Krishna. Every year, her pilgrimage to Allahabad, her walk barefoot to the Sangam. Other than a set of clothes and her Rudraksh rosary, she would carry banana leaves in her cloth bag, wind them round her feet, tie them with twine, since by the time she returned, the tarred surface of the road was a furnace. Saklani Nani ji of Dehradun has this rectangular tin trunk, a magician's box. Sangu and I squat on the floor, our frocks bunched up, our white cotton knickers showing. We gape at the things Nani pulls out. Thick gold ring, white khadi sari with indigo border, shaligram shivling, quartz mala, tiny brass vessels for puja, a brass palanquin, two miniature images of Ram and Sita, weather-beaten, worn-out prayer book, and a flaky black and white photo carefully wrapped in newspaper, a boy wearing a dhoti and kurta, a Gandhi cap on his head, behind him a stone wall. Who's this? Who's this? We chant. My husband. He was 14, I was 9. My husband, she says. He was 14, I was 9. We never set eyes on each other except during the wedding ceremony. Then, he died while I was still in my parental home. I don't remember him at all. My mother gave me this photo. Nani has never known a man other than her father and her brothers and this photo, her husband. The hissing wok is given a shake. It spits angrily as some water is poured. Stir, stir. Simmer, simmer. Old houses in the sun tell riveting tales of nameless, busted childhoods to little girls. Thank you. And the next poem that I'm going to read. One of the themes of Bhava Samvad is using words that effect change in a positive way. So keeping that in mind, I'd like to read this feisty, this wicked poem in which I've tried to smash the stereotypes that are imposed on 62 or 63-year-old successful middle-class women, older women who are boxed into these stereotypes. We women, 62, 63 years old, we women are forced to see ourselves in a certain way. We are forced to see ourselves as good, moral, kind, never naughty, never wicked. We are supposed to be female atlases holding the weight of the world on our shoulders, always following the straight and narrow for the good of the family and society at large. What happens if we step out of the box? What happens if we break the stereotype? This is the question that this poem raises. and in a jokey, in a humorous, and in a tolerant manner, this poem tries to, explore this issue. So the poem is titled Mammarian Milonga. Milonga is a dance like the tango. One day at 63, with affection my bosom undulating, since next day my cute little grandson would be arriving, I accidentally happened to see myself looking at myself in the mirror, my boobs hanging down to my knees. I refused to keel over, decided to determine how Deepika, Alia, Karina managed to direct their neat full orbs to jiggle to the throb of Desi beats. It's a muscular movement, my friend, a dancer in her youth confided. But why are you asking? She chided. I sat in front of the cheval glass, then stood upright and stared, trying to figure out the tendons that would bequeath my melons a life of their own. So, what if I was long past the age of wild oats sown? I tightened the arm muscles. I stopped my breath. I pulled in my stomach and straightened my head. The only body parts that jounced were the despondent shoulders. Up and down, up and down, down. And then, quite unwittingly, there was this sharp intake of air, a sudden gasp, as it happens in Baba Ramdev's Bhastrika or Kapal Bharti. And my bazookas popped out, pulsated and heaved, and from below my salt and pepper hair, through my failing eyesight, I perceived if I wore a tight blouse or a body hugging kameez, these dangling duds would do the dance and jive to the tempo of Dilbar, 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 Dilbar. Except now, this enterprise has got a lot more vexed with me wanting to master how to move independently, one breast and then the next. Thank you so much for being with me. I hope you enjoyed the poems. And now over to the next person.
May we hear your poems?
Shall I start?
Deepa?
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. First of all, I'd like to thank Kalinga Lit Fest, Mr. Rashmi Ranjan Parida, Jayashree Mishra Tripathi, Sitanshu for all the technical expertise, and Deva Mitra for the introduction. Well, I'm very happy to be here. And thanks a lot, Smitha, for the lovely poems and the beautiful beginning with Beru Pako. It made me so nostalgic, and especially the poem about Binsar and the other two poems as well. Well, the first poem I'm going to read is titled I Will Be Myself. Now, this is a poem by a mother, and I don't think I need to explain it too much because it'll be, explain itself in the reading. But there is something I'd like to say, that we have a lot to learn from children. If you notice how assertive a 2-year-old can be, Children are honest, they speak their minds till the time that they are conditioned, disciplined, sometimes even terrorized into and forced to fit into stereotypes. And this poem was written actually for a girl. So I'll just begin. As I said, it's a self explanatory poem. When you played, swam, splashed in the water of my womb, safe from want and desire, longing and need, anger and lust, did you not wonder as you fought your way out how you would survive a water being on arid earth? Or did you bear your own fulfillment clenched in your tiny fists as you announced through the first insistent yell, I am here, I am I, call me what you will. I have already chosen the shape of my nose, the sound of my voice, and I will be I. In spite of you, in spite of yours, mother, father, brother, sister, I will grow and be myself against all odds. And this is what I wish for all girls, that they continue to follow their own path instead of being coerced into whatever their elders, guide them into. So thanks a lot. Now, my second poem is titled Woman on the Road to Lhasa. Now, this poem had an interesting beginning. While I was researching for my book, Caravan to Tibet, in the course of my reading, I came across a rather curious fact in a book titled Lost World Tibet by author Amori D. Riencourt. And he had mentioned that wealthy women in Tibet would wear yak skin masks to cover their faces while traveling, and the reason being to protect their complexions. So I thought, in the context that women are so often compelled to chase all the accoutrements of preserving beauty, and this poem was the result. And I thought what a woman would feel like while she was traveling she was on the road with a yak skin mask. And since we had thought of looking back on an old poem and trying to discover new meanings, it struck me that this poem about masks is appropriate for our times when we are compelled to wear masks, where we have become strangers to one another because of COVID-19. So here it is. Beneath the mask, my face melts like a jaggery cake in the sun. Mercifully, I can see, even as I preserve the pink of my skin. But what's the use? My sisters remain strangers behind yak skin cheeks that cannot exchange smiles to lighten the tyranny of the road to Lhasa. All blinding earth and searing sky, bleached bone and rubble, bent over a chafing saddle, feeding fleas. Sorry, that should have been hung over a chafing saddle, feeding fleas. Only when night's black tent enfolds the enemy sun can I breathe. Let chilly air soothe broiling skin. Let laughter flow free as I shed the mask. Hard it is for a woman far from home, and endless the road to Lhasa beneath a mask. The thought of the migrant women workers uh, on their long, tiresome journeys also came to my mind when I reread this poem. So, thanks a lot for listening. Now, one of the other themes we had in mind was climate change. And this poem is titled Imaginary Snows. Now, whenever I have the opportunity to visit my hometown, Almora, I really look forward to beholding a view of the Himalayan snows. It's a kind of a treat that I promise myself, and especially at particular times of the year. Uh, Smitha had talked about how, the rhododendron blooming March onwards, but which bloomed in December. Now, there are certain times of the year when the air is clear and the snows are blindingly visible, and that's the time I like to go and enjoy the view. But what happened the last time I went? There was a dull gray curtain of haze over the view, and there was a person with us who made a rather strange remark. You will have to imagine the snow mountains, the man said. They are there, somewhere above the horizon. I tried to, aching to lose myself in the old enchantment. I groped behind the dingy grey curtain that separated me from the mountains, yearning for the blessed sheen of a vision unfairly snatched from me. Breathless with hope, I riffled through the clutter of memories, stacked like curling old photographs, strained to locate the blue backdrop against which they had glistened so carelessly once. Distant, I knew, yet close in their angled whiteness, embracing the sun with jagged arms, pouring its brilliance back into my dazzled eyes. I tried to imagine them, the beloved mountains, washed a purposeful pink at dawn, glistening pristine white at noon, and drowsing under the molten glimmer of dusk. Of course, they were there, somewhere beyond the limited range of my sight, somewhere behind the dingy curtain we had dragged over them. The grime of polluted breath, the soot of corrupt smoke, the dust stirred by indifferent vehicles. They were there, even if I could not see them, like beautiful women cloistered to evade lecherous gazes. They dreamed their secret dreams, shutting me out. I did not doubt that they were there, in a space beyond my reach. But what if the lens of memory fogged over, imagination was not enough, and you began to wonder, did the snows actually exist? Or had they poured themselves away into the restless mud of the torrents that rushed past, swirling, boiling, no longer serene and unmoving, rooted and secure, pristine, white, firm as belief? What then? And this is the thread that looms over us. Thanks a lot. If there's time, I'll read one very short poem. This poem is, yeah, is it okay?
All right. Could we come back to that after everyone's
Sure, sure. No problem. Thanks a lot. Thanks.
Yeah, Rachna, May we hear your poetry now? Rachna?
Is muted.
You just unmuted? There's a sign on your screen.
Yeah, it has been unmuted now.
Please start. Yeah.
But my picture seems to have disappeared. Okay, the first poem I'm going to read is called Jageshwar. It's about a nature walk through the hills, a beautiful environment which has now been ruined. 12 ancient temples in Jageshwar, the initial pines that lead to the inevitable Devdar, its green dark needles, vertical layers moving in wavered lines. We tramped, modern half-breeds, urbane, mixed up, to seek the benediction of the ancient world, like plants that become deformed in their reaching back, the roots entwined, the leaves losing sap. The constraints of caste and region have feathered and tarred our faces. We are the pariah Indians, the few idealists who seek oneness and in a country torn by every known difference. Could I say, when I reached the humped group of temples, guarded by the sentinel wind of the Himalayas, that I desired union, the lingam leering at the obscenity of my prurient soul. The world, yes, the flesh and paradise, the same old grind show of every man and God. I have tried to taste of the tree of knowledge, have aspired beyond the limits of an Indian Brahmin girl, born into a bewildering array of Puritan forefathers, who recited hymns and shlokas for birth, marriage, childbirth, fornication, adultery, murder, and what have you. With sacred threads and grey ashes, they broke the coconuts of inauguration. My blood, I rise like a throwback. I muck everything down the line. The generation's old intellect, the strict decorum. My blood wants the palpability of earthly love, not to obscure the predatory passions within the sanctified code. Till I pass Jageshwar, the clotted deodars, the smokewood huts, the scattered pines, the humped shrines, shaggy closeness of rhododendrons, smells of raw peaches, the leopard tracks, the wild bird's cry, the pit viper's slither, the pariah's bark, the wooden mounds that burn the dead. I felt like a girl going to harvest new green stalks, the first of the season, in an old village set in the pines, with 12 ancient temples and the bells chiming for the snows across the valley. The second poem I'm going to read is about 3 generations of women. It is called Untitled. Amma, I give you this poem and many more for your gentle bewilderment at my sea-rushing ways, for your utter bravado in championing a child as truant as I. You gave me this fragile bond with words, the classics, the Middle English ballads, the fragmented moderns. Those days in the brick-paved backyard, the winter sun made us drowsy, and the book of ancient Sanskrit was on your lap. The peace-giving Lord, the blue-skinned god, adorned with flowers, with blue winter lilies, reclining on a serpent chasing the thunderclouds. You gave me so many sides of myself. One is the light, the rational self, objective, contained, and complete. Your mother is another spin of the wheel. Nani, your raucous, earth-heaving chuckle, salacious, gossipy, and warm, like a copper pan of cooking odors, a spicy brew of Tibetan onions, a pickle miscellany. You are a whirlwind, a prejudice. You defy, you are hearty. Once you joined civil disobedience, flayed on your back by your cousin, the superintendent of police, you marched up the narrow black streets of Nainital. Out you hold children in thrall. Out of 5 sons, 3 married. 2 others grew old with the fear of your disapproval. You abound in totems, in fertility measures. Like the quack country remedies you told Ram Badan's wife. All scandal, all disease, insanity are your study. Grandmother, you fed me milk, rubbed me in butter, left me some impalpable strength to face the reiterated patterns of pain and healing that have followed me here to this alien land. And the third poem is about social issues. It is called In the City Alone. The lone tesu tree at the edge of the road, hardy survivor of many beautification drives, throws the morning shadow over the Mazdoor woman breaking stones. Half-erased signboards written in Hindi flank her. Yahan malba phekna mana hai. Do not throw rubble on the road. Undeterred, she keeps pounding rocks, breaking them into pebble size. The sidewalk is cluttered. There is a bulldozer parked on one side, and also a scrawny boy with a limp hobbling by. Girl on the bulldozer. Oh, thin girl on the bulldozer, your faded sari, shriveled plait, your bold attempt to stand erect have stilled me here. Is the beefy driver, lover, exploiter, employer? Have your desires, loves, and life been pounded into a sick and suffering body? Ensconced in my sunlit terrace, like the maker of a documentary film, I see you still. Elvish, wispy, forlorn spirit, I gather you in my thoughts. That boy with a limp. He had shorn off his hair after 1984, yet the limping boy still feels cornered by innocent stares. Pulled apart by 2 sets of conditioning, split by the riots in Byronic despair, he thrusts his fascinating profile forward. his trembling limb held firmly in check. He is iconoclastic and outrageous, his voice fierce, eyes black. He seeks clarity and meaning, identity and success in an increasingly incomprehensible world. Images of carnage haunt him. Scared, wary, suspicious, he will rather starve than beg.
Thank you, Rachna. And so it's been wonderful bringing up so many memories, all these poets that we've been listening to. I have a few short poems now for you to hear, and mine have been written recently during these strangeness, these months that we've all experienced in different ways. This one is titled Mid March Rains. In fact, it was on the 14th of March after a women's poetry meeting at the Indian International Center where Deepa was also present. It started raining so heavily. It was quite a shock. We never expected it, and then no one expected it. So this is called Mid-March Rains. Rains lashed the city, hailstones battered roads as the heavens opened up in rage. Traffic crawled like a sloth ground to an unwilling halt. Mid-March, the Ides of March, too often misquoted. Yet a strange coincidence, at the end of March, we have endured 14 hours of curfew one day. Caught in the safety net lockdown, it continues surreal. The second part to this is called A Virus. A virus holds the world in thrall. Fear of infection, fear of no recovery. We play our roles, marionettes in our dwelling spaces, some truly alone. Isolation blues tinge our days and nights a weary hue, no color scheme. House arrest for good health may not be undermined. No protested about too loud. Death, the ultimate truth for some in the roll of dice. And the third one in this trilogy is called Lockdown Blues, because we are so accustomed to hashtags now on Twitter, on Instagram, even on LinkedIn. So this is hashtag Lockdown Blues. Loneliness has been redefined. Urban city dwellers in confined space. Hark! Love will find a way. If not, isolation will. No sense of tranquility. At these interruptions, fearful of our mindfulness, we rally forth, armed with good intentions, hide the hollowness in the pit of the stomach, revere quiet solitude, to reflect, to listen, to relearn. Solitude, an invincible shield. Hashtag lockdown hopes. All is not unwell in these pandemic times. Behold blue sunny skies, birds that trill merrily. The horizon is clear, and each of us has learned anew, by force of circumstances, intimate interaction. He for she, and she for he. We for family, and care for elders. Support for helpers, the underprivileged. Care for the environment. Joy abides around the corner to disperse when the air is pure, when our thoughts are kinder, our actions nobler. We will heal. We will heal. Then I've written one, my last poem is a nostalgic one, which I feel many of us experience, as Smitha said, no, when we're a plus 60 group and you meet people after years and years, after decades. So this is called With Time. Emotions long repressed churn in eternity it takes for you to walk towards me, leaning heavily on your ebony cane. Wisps of your silver grey hair frame the precious image I recall all too well. Eyes cold lined, glances that enthralled, lips shimmered rose petal drops that beckoned and enticed. Brows, light brown, softly defined, often raised, danced in tandem with your fluttering lashes as you smiled in irrepressible mirth. Well met at eventide. Well met. Namaskar. I'll stop here today because we would love to hear some comments and questions, and then we'd like to go back and see if we have time to read a few points. Yes? Sitanshu and Debamitra, are there any comments or questions from the viewers? There are some comments on the screen. Susanta Das says eco poetry has gained much popularity these days. Any of you would like to comment on this, Rachna? Eco poetry? Unmute. Please unmute your mics.
Yeah, environment and climate change and this pandemic are all interconnected. This is a very topical issue.
Yes. Any other comments?
I would also like to add over here that all the listeners must have noticed that Rachna Deepaji and I, we never, or you, we never discussed. You had just given us a broad framework that
Yes.
ecological issues could be taken up in our poetry. But I noticed that Rachna talked of Jageshwar, Deepaji talked of Almora, I talked of Binsar. So, I mean, in our own separate ways, we have seen and registered the degradation and the depredation of Uttarakhand Himalayas.
Absolutely. And I didn't mention, I had some more points on climate change, but because due to lack of time, we're almost into 1 hour. I didn't read that, but they were on climate change on the cyclones in Odisha. But I hope you'll read it in the poetry journal. They're there. Some of you have time to read. Uh, Pranab Pasayat says, great personalities. Namaskar. Thank you so much for joining us today. And if we have more of these, and Palishri Patanayak says, mind-blowing poem. I don't know which one. You could mention that, but I hope you find all our poems have given you some thought. And Mandira, hello Mandira. KLF brought hope for writers and listeners during these difficult and challenging times. Very true, this interconnectedness, and we are very thankful to KLF and for their vision because the director Rashmi Ranjan approached me on May 15th, and in 2 days we had our first session. That was really wonderful, and everyone joined in. And I think this is our 39th episode. So yes, it has given us some focus and something to look forward to, these weekly programs that they have. And way to go, Rashna Joshi, and that is Neeta Gupta says, Mohini Gupta for you. All right. I'm thinking if we have Rachna, you can read that, right? Rachna, awesome poem. So
Yeah.
we have a little time. So Deepa, would you like to read the short poem that you had in mind?
During the lockdown, we've heard of a lot of cases of domestic violence. So this is a very recent poem of mine, and it's titled Accident-Prone Women. Some women just happen to be accident-prone. Unseeing, they walk into doors and smash their faces. Heedless, they trip while alighting from a bus and end up with an arm or leg in plaster. Incredibly, each room in the house holds danger for them. They slip in the bathroom and knock themselves out, set themselves afire while cooking. Sometimes they land up in the hospital, and sometimes their injuries are fatal. Accidents will happen, we are told, even in the best of families, because some women just happen to be accident prone. Why are they so accident prone? Is it a genetic defect or something that happened while they were growing up? I searched in the blank eyes of an accident-prone friend, examine the unsightly bruise my cleaning woman is hiding under her sari, and uncover the grim truth of an accident-prone woman. Okay, thanks a
Thank you,
lot.
Deepa. Thank you. Yes, may I say I didn't bring in domestic violence into this session because there's so much to say about it, and Smitha has done so much work, and I've written about it, and Rachna knows, and I think Rachna and Deepa, you were both at our last conference, no, the IIC, where we spoke about this, but we leave that for another day because today I wanted to focus on wellness and hope and how words inspire. And yes, accident prone is the first thing people say when they notice a bruise on your cheek or your eyes or something. So that's food for thought for next time. Smitha, you brought up a lot of memories of my great great grandmother who was a child widow. And I'm a widow now, but I live a life of privilege compared to my ancestor. So you brought up many memories. It's so true. I mean, they all listened to the story. She had never seen, my great great grandmother had never seen her husband. And she was 10 and he was 14. And he died before she could be sent to his house after puberty, right?
10 and 14, see? It was so common those days in the times of our grandmothers. So common.
But,
Child marriage.
yes, but my great great grandmother, much later, her brother supported her and told her not to go back to her in law's house in case she would be treated badly. But there came a time when she decided she would go back. She went back, they treated her very badly. She stayed at the edge of the, edge of their compound or whatever. But then she adopted someone, and that's how my lineage comes, Then she adopted her brother's cousin's son. And she became quite a tyrant in that village later on when she was over 65. So there was, she found herself on that. And Deepa and Sarchana and Smitha, thank you all so much. You've given us a glimpse of your amazing writing skills. And aren't we blessed that in India we have this diversity, not just of languages, but being able to express ourselves through our words in our own languages and in English, some of us, and through songs, Smitha. And I look forward to KLF hosting us again in the future, and we could bring some more words to our viewers. Thank you so much. And Sitanshu and Devamitra and the director, Rashmi Ranjan, and his team, Prachi, for the beautiful creatives she makes of all of us looking so nice that they advertise. Thank you all for being here. Namaskar.
Thank you very much, KLF. Thank you. Thank you, everyone, all the panelists. Wonderful being
Thank
with you.
you.
Thanks a lot and thoroughly enjoyed everybody's poems.
Thank you.
Okay, then, all the best. Shall we leave?